It's bye week, but we have a game to talk about. Michigan went to Lincoln, Nebraska, handled business. And we're going to dig deep into the manifesto to get into it with Connor Stalions on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. That's Connor Stalions, the sign stealer. There are no others. He's the only one that's ever stolen signs from anyone ever. It was like an Ocean's 11 style heist that he did all across the country. Before we get to Connor, thank you to all of our everydayers. Thank you to everyone making us your first listen as well. Connor, before I get into it, just because I said me saying that, did you see that Barstool had like Megan Making Money had like a little like clip of like what sports person do you just irrationally hate? And it was going around and asking everyone's, having their answers like, oh, Patrick Mahomes or, Peyton Manning. They got to Barstool hate, Ohio's hate. And he said, you.
Good.
So just had to let you know if you didn't know that.
Nice.
All right. You were number one. You were troll number one down in Lincoln with the bussin' with the boys.
That was great
thing. But you were also
shout out to Will. Happy birthday to Will.
You were having fun last week with the whole thing, and I wanted to get out there. I was too tired by the time I made it to Omaha, but that was hilarious watching that unfold. You had told me about it in advance, but what did you see when it came to Michigan itself? What were your thoughts of the game itself, whether it was handling the atmosphere? I mean, it was an incredible atmosphere, as I think you would agree, and just general play.
I'll start with the atmosphere. Obviously, the fan base, which you got to give Nebraska's fans a shout out. They're awesome. I think Nebraska is probably the most underrated atmosphere in the country because everyone thinks of LSU, A&M, Penn State, Ohio State, but Nebraska, as you see, is extremely loud, very loyal fan base. Got to give it to them. Always fun being in Lincoln. I also will say this, though, about a guy like Bryce or any team with like the toughness of Michigan. Atmospheres only do so much, right? It's cool as a fan, and yes, it's loud. But from an intimidation standpoint, once you're between the white lines, I mean, most of that just kind of throw it out the window, and it's football time. For an 18-year-old true freshman who has had a lot of pressure on him in his life, I don't care where it is, Penn State, Nebraska, A&M, LSU, all those crazy atmospheres, doesn't really faze a guy when he's locked in. And I think you see that, right? I mean, for some, that might be pretty overwhelming, but I mean, it's football. It is what it is, and focus on your assignment and execute, and that's what he does. From a big picture standpoint for the team, I think both sides of the ball, you saw a lot of corrections from the Oklahoma game, both from play calling standpoint and just executing. Obviously, there's still a lot to clean up, which is always good. I always said that before. Sometimes it's better to have some corrections to make on film than to just think everything's great. So I guess that's a positive moving forward. But you did definitely see improvement from the Oklahoma game to the Nebraska game.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny seeing kind of the divergent narratives that have come out of the game. I came out of the game being like, all right, Michigan can do it on both sides of the ball when it comes to the line play, right? Like the offensive line was one of my biggest concerns going into the year. A lot of people were really concerned. I wasn't, but a lot of people were really concerned after the first 3 weeks about the defensive line. I think that you come out of that game feeling like, all right, they can smash, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and certainly, whether it was this isn't a call out. I mean, we talked about it yesterday on the show. Jack Tuttle was texting me during the post-game press conference, all angry. There was another angry reporter that was sitting next to me in the press conference that was angry because it was only a 3-point win and all of that. But like, what's your takeaway generally when it came to that game? I understand like Michigan should have won by a lot more, despite what Parker Fleming put out there. And did we get that? It beat that bad chart. But what do you think? What's your general feeling in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about like the dumb penalty that Brandon had and just a couple of mistakes that were pretty costly, the timeout, clock management, the first half, or lack thereof of a timeout. I mean, I'll start with the timeout. I mean, you got to call a timeout, forcing the punt. I would have called the timeout after second down because it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was like second and long, right? Didn't we sack them on first down or something, or maybe on that second down? So it was like about to be 3rd and 20 plus. I'd call a timeout right there, and who knows? Maybe there's a bad punt or a block, or maybe I would assume we would have run the ball, but maybe on the first run, if there's 40 seconds left, you break one for 20 yards. Hey, now let's get into field goal range. So I would have been way more aggressive.
Break a long run, though. That's I haven't seen.
Yeah. Not sure if it's in our repertoire.
No, not at all.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think we all agree that even in real time, definitely should be more aggressive, call timeouts, get the ball back, whether you're just forcing a punt or you get the ball back with 30 plus seconds to maybe do something, get in field goal range. But again, like you said, I don't know if we have a run game that can do that or a kicker who can kick it very far. But yeah, that's obvious. So I mean, you could say that's 7 points off the board right there for Nebraska. Should be just from a game management standpoint, not from a execution standpoint on the players. And then Brandon Hillman, we were up 10. That would have been get the ball back with good field position, go up 13 or 17, and then he taunts the sideline. Yeah, that's got to be corrected, and I know it is and will be. But at the same time, too, this is not an excuse for Brandon. Sometimes you get a guy like that who's kind of unhinged, for lack of a better term. And, it's like, what do they say? Like Dennis Rodman, like sometimes you don't want to put a saddle on a Mustang, right? And you see the way he plays, and he plays pretty loose, and he's got to walk that fine line of not, it's kind of like how to call the game with Bryce at quarterback. But with him, I mean, he just flies the football, and I think he made 2 huge hits on that next drive, or on that same drive that he had we gave up 3 points, but we did stop him in the red zone, which is a big strength, the red zone defense. But no, I think some of those mistakes it's better, like I said last week, where you don't want to be operating at 0%. You also don't want to be operating, over that fine line. You go 100%. Well, sometimes you get those penalties. So finding that fine line around that 90% mark or whatever, I think Brandon's figuring that out too as he grows as a safety. He's a junior, but really second year, like truly playing. He's finding that, hey, I can go this. I got to tone it back a little bit. But you don't want to do that too much because, man, does he make plays.
Yeah, indeed. I'm with you on that. I agree. You want to have the maniacs out there. Brandon's the type of player that Michigan has not had in forever. Kind of hard to think.
Sometimes you gotta let him do his thing.
It's weird to think he was a Notre Dame signee. Doesn't look like someone that would ever play at Notre Dame. All right, we're going to get into the offense and talk a lot about Bryce Underwood. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I'm going to go ahead and give it all for Michigan to that defensive front who just terrorized Dylan Raiola. And when I say front, I mean the linebackers too, because it was Ernest Hausman, it was Cole Sullivan, it was Derek Moore, it was Jaishawn Barham, it was Rayshawn Benny. It sounds like a Saturday Night Live roll call when I go through it here. I can't even pick one play. It was just the entire game, 7 sacks. So when the pressure was on, the Michigan front came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. The defense is getting better and better and more terrifying in a good way. So just like the Michigan defensive front delivered for Michigan, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays rather with DoorDash Streaks. You have every Saturday you order, stack it up. You save every Saturday you order, and reading is good. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Wow, that was a struggle session on my end. I'm not going to lie. We're going to continue on here in just a moment, but the NFL, it's happening right now. Well, tonight at least. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kick. AJ Barner and the Seahawks on Amazon Prime. I've been seeing that. Well, he's on the promo. That's why I mentioned that. But FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because you can use it however you like to bet. Player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Connor, now that we've shown everybody that I'm illiterate, agreed. Let's get into the offense. First, I think that, you see a lot of, I don't think it's certainly not Michigan fans who I feel like kind of like the JJ McCarthy of it all.
Yeah.
Michigan fans are ecstatic with what they're getting right now. Now, did Bryce set the world on fire last week? No, he didn't set the world on fire, but he made timely plays, which is the most important thing.
Where you can see it.
Yeah. And, it was the same thing with JJ. JJ, had better stats overall generally, but you would see the same thing where, rival fans, national media, would come up with their thing, and Michigan fans are like, we wouldn't trade this guy for the world. So you have some intel here that you've gleaned on Bryce. Tell us a little bit why this was a much better performance than a lot of people are giving Bryce credit for.
Yeah, I know you saw I tweeted about clearly just kind of talking about addressing the media narrative after that game about stats, box score, but I said box score stat warriors. When you go on the ESPN app and you look at the box score, you look at the individual stats, what you see is down here, the total, both for 105 yards, 6 rushes, 52 yards, touchdown, and a fumble. That's not overwhelming for a stat box or a score box stat warrior or whatever. It doesn't look sexy. It doesn't look the 300 yards, the 3 touchdowns, all that. What did Michigan rush for? 250 plus, right?
Close to 3.
Okay. So what did Nebraska rush for? 40-something yards, right? 0 in the second half, I think I saw. I know that's all sack adjusted, but 40-something rushing yards total is very telling, right? And so, of course, if you're going to compete, you're going to have to go quick game. We saw what happens when Nebraska went drop back, and we said that all week on the podcast last week. We knew that the defensive ends were going to be overwhelming, and I didn't even know that Jaishawn would be at boundary end the whole game. That's we'll talk about that in the next segment. But when you look at the stats as a whole, it doesn't tell you the big picture, right? It has no context when you just look at 12 for 22. So what I did was I broke it down, went through every rep, and broke down the drop back, what type of footwork was it, what type of play was it, what type of decision making was it, and what happened. And so when you see, he goes 3 for 4 in quick game. He did have one ball, Samaj dropped on a slant, and then he did have the scramble that he fumbled. That was quick game, so that was a mistake. Although that was a great strip, I will say that. And then in drop back, he was 2 for 5. But what actually happened? There was one drop. There was, I think that was the Goodwin drop in the end zone. It would have been a touchdown. And then you have the McCulley review that I think whatever it was called on the field, which was also confusing because at first they called it a catch and then they called it incomplete and then they reviewed it. Plays upheld. But, I mean, it doesn't get any closer than that. So say they ruled that a catch, and then he did have one. He scrambled out to his left and threw the ball away on 3rd and 14. It was tipped. And that was a good decision. These ones in yellow, that was a good decision. I mean, what else is he going to do? It's 3rd and 14. Probably could have ran it, but you would rather see him throw the ball away, relatively speaking, than put it in harm's way, give it, a 50-50. Play action, he was 0 for 1 on regular play action drop back. That was McCulley got jammed to the line and looked like he was running the same route as I think it was Goodwin. And then play action movement, so he's turning his back to the line. Play action, and then whether it's boot or roll, whatever the case is, he was 3 for 6, 2 drops. And then one was tipped by a defensive end. He should have had a better arm slot on that. So really one mistake. Sprint out, he was 1 for 2. That was the one he did miss. Goodwin on, I believe it was like 3rd and 4, like a 5-yard gain. That was his one bad miss. And then screens, kind of they are what they are, right? 3 for 4. I don't know if he has the green light to check out of plays. In this situation, but he did throw a now screen into press coverage, which is not ideal. So ideally he gets out of that play. And as we go through this, I think you'll see that he has the mental capacity to do so. RPOs, they only ran two significant RPOs. I'm not counting all the ones that he, handed off running an RPO, but he never pulled it throwing an RPO. The 2 big rushes that he had, one for whatever it was, 30-something yard touchdown, and then he had another 12-yard gain. Those were quarterback run RPO. So receivers are running a concept. He's probably reading the mic plus the safety shell. If it's too high, read the mic. If the mic leaves, like on his touchdown, they flared the back, and he saw so you could see they were in too high. The mic left with the back. So he's reading the mic. The mic leaves, I run. The mic stays, I throw. And the mic left, so he ran it. And he got 49 yards and a touchdown on those 2 RPOs. And then design quarterback runs, there were 3 of them, and he got 3 yards. So when you look at it in a just big picture, you open up the box score and you see 12 for 22. For 105 yards, opposing fans or the national media, you say, oh, this is what you paid for. He's the number 1 recruit. Well, when you look at it like that, sure, you can think of it that way. But first of all, when you adjust for the drops, the 5 drops we had, here's what it would be. Okay, he would have gone 4 for 4 quick game, 29 yards. He would have gone 4 for 5 drop back. I'm assuming they count the McCulley. I know that's not a drop, but the borderline catch out of bounds. They rule that a catch plus the drop in the end zone from Goodwin. Then he would be 4 for 5 with 66 yards and a touchdown drop back. And then he had his one incompletion was a smart throwaway on 3rd down. Play action, he'd be 0 for 1 with a smart throwaway. Play action movement, he would have been 5 for 6 with 60 yards with one ball tipped by the DN. Sprint out, he would have gone 1 for 2. That was his one miss. And then screen game, assuming that stays the same, 3 for 4 with the one incompletion into press coverage, and then the RPO and Q run. So his overall stats, drop adjusted, would have been 17 for 22, 176 yards, 1 touchdown in the air, 1 touchdown on the ground, 52 rushing yards plus the fumble. And again, that's just adjusting for the drops. And then when you really think about it, okay, well, which categories involve the most cerebral strain, we'll call it, mental strain on a quarterback? It's a little bit of quick game, but mostly drop back, play action, and then RPO. So when Bryce is really making decisions in the RPO game, and then specifically the drop back and play action, that's where he thrives, right? He is putting the ball everywhere it needs to be. He's going in combination of drop back through play action. He would be 9 for 12 with 126 yards and a touchdown. I'm going to take that out of a true freshman in his second road start, right? Trevor Lawrence didn't start until week 5, I believe, at Clemson. Everyone thinks of him as a true freshman starter. Bryce starting week 1, day 1, spring ball, call him a starter, and in a tough road environment against a very Nebraska's pass defense is elite. Right? I think they're a top 10 pass defense in the country. And to say, hey, when the pocket's collapsing, when you're dropping back, taking a 3+ step drop back, and or play action where you're turning your back to the defense for a second and then facing the defense, if you're to tell me that he's putting the ball exactly where it needs to be 9 out of 12 times as a true freshman in the most difficult drops a quarterback can make, and footwork drops a quarterback can make, I mean, who wouldn't take that? Right? So, yeah, just going through all the context, and you see he put the ball where it needed to be. You see 17 of 22 drop adjusted, but I would say that the 2 throwaways here are also good decisions. So 19 out of 22 times, he's putting the ball exactly where it needs to go. And I'm not the quarterback coach. I'm not in meetings, right? He may have missed a read. He may have had one of his completions might have been the wrong read. He should have thrown it to so-and-so instead of so-and-so, given the defensive look. But, summarizing it up to say 19 times out of 22, a true freshman, week 4 in a tough road environment is putting the ball everywhere it needs to be. Who's not taking that?
Yeah, one thing to note is PFF has, out of every quarterback in the country, I'm not even talking, obviously it'd be hard if you're a backup to have these numbers, but of any quarterback in the country, Bryce Underwood is 5th in receiver drops, 5th in the country in the most receiver drops. So that should tell you something. With that in mind, there are issues with, listen, I love Samaj Morgan with my whole heart. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
And
Samaj made some great plays, too. Yeah.
And Shannon Goodwin's been called Mr. Reliable, but if he doesn't kind of figure some things out, he's going to be known Mr. Reliable for something bad. With that in mind, those 2 guys are the problem. Mostly the problem with the drops. Is there anyone that you feel like, you've been in those rooms, you've seen what they, who can do what? Who do you think Michigan should maybe put out there if they have other options?
So obviously McCulley is appearing to be Mr. Reliable, right? Even that incompletion on the sideline, that would have been a top 5 play, right? On ESPN the next day. They call that a catch. But if we're looking for more guys that can provide some consistency, the first that comes to mind is Peyton O'Leary. Talk about a guy who I saw him for 3 years. His redshirt year, and then the next 2, and it seemed like every single offseason he just grinded his way onto the 3 deep depth chart. And, for whatever reason during the season, he doesn't see much playing time. But then you saw it last year. I thought last year he was the most consistent receiver on the team. Not the most explosive, but he's always going to be exactly where he needs to be, and he's always going to catch the football. So I'd be curious to see if they put him in more, get him more reps at receiver. I think that he can provide some consistency while the others, specifically the younger guys, are finding that consistency. And then I don't know how many targets Marlon got, but yeah, I don't know. I have some thoughts on. You want to see him go too heavy a personnel, like 12. You want to live in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends when you're trying to open up the offense and throw the ball more. Obviously, 12 is a strength of ours, running the ball. But yeah, I think Peyton O'Leary, maybe see him get some reps in these next few weeks. I mean, you saw him in the Ohio State game. You see him on the big stage, made probably the most clutch catch of the season last year. Yeah, we'll see what they do.
Yeah, they need to do something, and that's where you hope that maybe the bye week is a good time for them to figure some of those things out. Yep. We are already pretty much at time, but we still have to talk about the defense, so we were going to get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, I'm going to give this one to Justice Haynes. The moment that Nebraska thought they clawed down from 10-0. It's 10-10. Everyone's going nuts. And then one play later, Justice Haynes gets a 75-yard touchdown. Absolutely incredible. He's done it every week. It's not surprising because at this point, it's almost surprising if he doesn't. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Connor, we don't have very much time to talk about the defense here, but which is fine because they weren't very good. Let's get into well that is kind of sometimes that's the national narrative, right? Like they skip over the 43 rushing yards allowed and say, oh, but 306 yards to Dylan Raiola, and as if that actually gives you more in a different way.
Real quick on the topic of rushing yards too, you mentioned Justice Haynes. People nationally, for whatever, no one has time to watch every single game in depth, right? So people draw to conclusions by just looking at the box score, watching the highlights, whatever. And even like with Michigan's rushing yards, Justice Haynes is dominating statistically and visually. You pull up the film and, this guy's legit, right? I'll stand by what I said last week. He definitely appears to have the low center of gravity of Blake, the open speed of Dono, and the power of Hassan, all in one. But look at Jordan Marshall, too. I mean, Jordan Marshall would be a number one running back on probably 95% of teams in the country. And when you look at it this way, it's like, it's not a recruiting pitch or anything, but I wouldn't hate you if you turn this into a recruiting pitch. Hey, if you're a running back, would you rather have a lot more stats at another school and get drafted lower, or would you rather share the ball and win games? And you get a guy like Jordan Marshall who more of a selfish guy might look at it and be like, I'm not getting the carries I deserve. Or he's probably looking at it as, hold on, it's kind of like, miles on a car or on a tire, where if I don't have to carry the ball every play and we can split this thing and we can both dominate, I'm going to only have maybe 60% of the yards I would have had if I was the number one, but we can win and I can relatively, rest up, stay healthy for the league. it's really a perfect, that's Michigan's run game has thrived on that, where you have that 1-2 punch where at another school he might be the number one guy. But again, that just because someone has better stats doesn't mean they're a better running back. Pull up the tape and, how does he play? To that, going back to Michigan's defense now, you see Dylan Raiola had 300 plus passing yards. Yeah, but what were they all on? It was all on quick game, right? The second he dropped back, and we said this, it was going to happen. I mean, it's a sack every time. So that's just my little spiel about stats and how irrelevant stats are. Did you win the game? How'd you do it?
Plus, if you have 300 yards passing and essentially no yards rushing, yeah, the game ended up being a three-point game, but it kind of tells you more about the ebb and flow of the game if you aren't able to run the football and you have a ton of passing yards, right? Generally, you're not trying to run. And Nebraska, they had to get away from the run relatively early because it was pretty clear that they couldn't run the ball. And
should have stuck to perimeter run. We said it, perimeter run and quick game. It's the only way they were going to have success, and it was the only success they had.
All right, we've got about 2 minutes left. Who were your players of the game here from a defensive standpoint?
I mean, pretty much the whole defense. I think Jaishawn at Buck at boundary end is huge, and I don't think enough people are talking about that, where we clearly have linebacker depth. I don't know if that was a question mark going in, but Cole Sullivan is here to stay, right? I don't know if he's technically a starter, but he is a starter, talent-wise, cerebrally. I mean, man, does he make plays. Him and Ernest allows Jaishawn to leave the linebacker position and play boundary end opposite of Derek Moore. Now, I don't know any combination in the country that has Derek Moore, Jaishawn rushing from the opposite side. That doesn't sound very fair. And then the interior D-line, how good they are, and a lot of depth there. So I think that moving Jaishawn to boundary end, we heard rumors all offseason about that, but now you see it, and you see the stress that Dylan was in the pocket. I mean, that's dangerous moving forward.
Yeah, it is. I want to give you one last moment here, just so you can give some love to Elijah Dotson, because you coached him as well.
Elijah,
right?
He told me he was starting on kickoff. I was pretty excited. He didn't tell me he was going to be playing corner in the first drive. Saw that, I'm like, wait, that's Elijah out there. Holy cow, let's go. But yeah, got to give Elijah a shout out. Talk about a guy who at Belleville, obviously anyone, I don't care who you are, you're going to kind of be underneath this cloud of Bryce, just from a national narrative standpoint. And talk about a guy, just an awesome family, a great kid who goes in at Michigan, puts his head down, and he's used to being the guy too. Like everyone that goes to Michigan to play football has always been the guy in high school, but he has definitely done a good job of learning the playbook as fast as possible. He's a very smart kid, and you saw the pick last week against Central. Now you start to see him play more and more. I mean, he's definitely a 3-year starter, right? Whether he starts right now or he gets in the rotation, he's a guy that you can rely on for 3+ years. I'm excited to see him on the field very quick in a tough game.
Indeed. Well, we haven't even broke down the opponent that is this week. They come in undefeated.
They are.
We'll have to get to them next week as we are getting to Wisconsin. But it's good to see you, my friend. We will reconvene next week, at least on air, and we'll start to get into they'll be all preview mode next week because we don't have
you and the Badgers,
and they look good, right? I mean, they're out there running around yakety sacks. We're sitting there questioning if Luke Fickell is going to have a job by then. That's all the stuff you want to talk about, right? So, all right, enough ridiculousness. We're
can't
way
overlook
past
anyone.
Can't overlook anyone. True. I will though. All right. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.